Hello, everyone. We are about to start in 1 minute. We're just waiting for other participants to come. So it's 4 p.m. So should we start, or maybe we still wait a bit? Okay, so. Okay, I think we can start. So welcome everyone to the second webinar of Agroecology Europe for the month of agroecology. And today we, the Coalition of Health Professionals for Regenerative Agriculture, have the pleasure to carry out this webinar titled From Science to Action to Accelerate the Food System Transformation. So we have quite a tight agenda. We firstly want to address the healthcare and the agricultural problem that we are right now facing and how these two are linked. But then we really want to move forward talking about which are the solutions. So we're going to talk about regenerative healthcare and regenerative agriculture. And then we would like to describe some of the initiatives that are happening in Europe and abroad, dealing with the One Health concept. If you have any questions, any comments, we invite you to write in the chat. At the end of the presentation, we will have some time to share them and discuss them all together. We will also have 2 breakups room and 2 moments in which we would like to make the presentation a little bit more interactive. And yes, I think we can start. But before going into the topic of our presentation, we wanted to introduce our team. So we are 4 nutritionists passionate about soil. We have Zuzanna that today will be presenting together with me. She has a degree in marketing management and a bachelor in global health and nutrition. And she is right now opening an impact venture to scale up accessibility to health professionals using food as medicine principle. Then there is Raiza. Raiza has been working for a lot of years in regenerative agriculture. She's an expert in nutrition and she's also focusing in naturopathy. Then there's me, Cristina. I am a dietitian and agroecologist, and I'm also a member of the board of director of Agroecology Europe, and I am the coordinator of the youth network. And then Eirini. Eirini has also worked for several years in regenerative agriculture and sustainable food system, and her expertise are integrative nutrition and consumer behavior. Well, since the beginning, the goals of our coalition was to forming and co-create the new generation of health professionals. And we want to do this by creating a network of European community around nutrient density. And we're going to go much more into details about this concept later. We also want to promote education on the connection of soil and human health. And we are already doing this by creating a database that gathers all the scientific and non-scientific material around the connection of soil, environment, and human health. And as health professionals, one of our main goals is to empower farmers to grow more nutrient-dense food. So let's start with the first chapter of our webinar, which will deal with the healthcare and agricultural problem. And we really wanted to start with this slide that try to link and understand how both the planet and our bodies are on fire. So it is already been well understood that 33% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from agricultural operations. And this is because the most adopted and widespread agricultural system is the industrial one. And the industrial farming practices are destroying our ecosystem. The industrial agriculture is characterized, of course, by monoculture. And in fact, we are facing land use and domination by wheat, corn, rice, and soy. And it is not a coincidence that also our diet are mainly composed, and we're talking about almost 75% of our diet composed only by those 4 crops. And we are not eating them just as raw material, but mostly as ultra-processed food that are causing chronic inflammation in our bodies. And if with industrial agriculture, farmers are losing the know-how of how to properly do agriculture, on the other hand, we are also losing the knowledge and the skill of traditional and cultural diets. And because of the globalized food supply chain, we are facing a lack of nutritional variety that is causing also a lack of micronutrients. A very important data is that 75% of all deaths are caused by non-communicable diseases. The 4 main ones are cardiovascular diseases, cancer, diabetes, and chronic respiratory diseases. And it is evident how these communicable diseases are influenced and caused by our diet and our lifestyle. And these diseases are the leading cause of mortality in Europe. And the fact that healthcare system do not focus on prevention of them, but it just focus on how to healing them when they occur, it's costing us a lot. And we are talking about 700,000 billion euros annually spent on chronic diseases, which represented 75% of healthcare system bill. And even more, 150 billion euros are the associated costs for premature death due to chronic diseases of the pre-working age population. And in addition, absenteeism from work as a result of chronic diseases result in a loss of 2.5% of annual GDP. And we are not talking about stable data, but the situation is going to get worse and more expensive. In fact, the annual rate of growth of the healthcare spending is about 0.8%. So if in 2014 we have spent 966 billion euros in healthcare, in 2050 it is predicted that we will spend 1,258 billion euros. Having said that, and having said that most chronic diseases are linked to diet, yet many hospitals provide poorly nutrition diet. And we are not even mentioning all the school canteen and in general, the collective restoration. Only 23 hours on average in medical school have been dedicated to nutrition education. And farmers and nutritionists are often not part of the healthcare sector. And they're also not taken into account during the decision-making processes at national or at EU level. And we are more than sure that if it would have been different, also a lot of the EU strategies for the agriculture and the healthcare system would also be different. But let's move a little bit into the detail of today's topic, which is mainly the linkage between soil health and human health. And let's start with this statement. Soil are the basis of life. And in fact, 95% of our food comes from soil. And it can come directly as vegetable, fruit, and grains, or indirectly from animals. So whatever we eat, it comes from the soil. And so what we introduce, it firstly arrives from what's happening in our soil. Why is it important to have in mind this statement? Because we are actually degrading our soil. And soil degradation affects human nutrition and health through its adverse impact on the quantity and the quality of food production. So we are not only talking about the decline in crop yield, but also we are facing a a shift in our food is always less and less nutrition because we're facing low concentration of protein in micronutrient in our soil, and that consecutively we find also this lack of components in the food we eat. It is not so easy, though, to restore our soil if we think that it can take up to 1,000 years to produce topsoil. And to give you an idea of how bad we are doing right now, let's think that every year we are losing, because of degradation, in an area of soil as big as the entire Costa Rica, every year. And already 33% of our global soil are degraded. And we are already seeing the consequences of this depletion. If we just look, for example, at the micronutrient deficiency all around the globe, we have 1 to 2 billion people at risk of iron deficiency. We have 740 million people that are currently affected by iodine deficiency and 2 billion at risk of it. 0.5 to 1 billion people at risk of selenium, and an estimate of 70.3% of the world population is at risk of inadequate zinc intake. This is because we are producing fruit and vegetables that are less nutrition than they used to be just decades ago. So we're not talking about centuries. And the fruit, vegetables, and grain that we are growing today carry less protein, calcium, phosphorus, iron, riboflavin, and vitamin C. All components that we can only absorb through what we eat. We actually have money dedicated on agriculture. In fact, we have approximately the 38% of the EU budget allocated on agriculture. But what is not working is that 80% of the farm aids goes to only about a quarter of the European farmers. This is because already, and still nowadays, the criteria to address this EU funding are based on the revenues and more hectare. Nobody addressed the nutrient density or the nutrient variation based on the agricultural practices adopted in a specific farm. And in addition, cheap subsidized food grown in Europe, but that we haven't sold in Europe, will be then sold in global South countries such as Africa, causing dramatic consequences for the market of the local farmers. And we want to conclude this chapter saying and stating the fact that malnutrition is actually the contemporary epidemic that we are facing worldwide. And we are facing a coexistence of undernutrition along with overweight and obesity. And if you want even to contextualize more in the European context, diet-related communicable disease and micronutrient deficiency are one of the most widespread diseases in Europe. But now that we have given you, let's say, an overview of all the problems that agriculture and healthcare system are facing, we want to stop talking about problems because we've talked about problems for so long. We should start talking about solution. And so now what we want to do with you is to split the participant into breakout room and ask you to discuss for 5 minutes how, in your opinion, can agriculture and healthcare be reunited. We will separate for 5 minutes and then we can go back here and start with the presentation.
we grow food that is nutrient dense, and therefore it's going to be a medicine for the people that need this medicine. And we see these people now having diets that are not fulfilling themselves in terms of nutrients. So just directly farming to hospital, farm to table restaurants, and I think that's the best approach that we can see in the future. So, Brian, would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. So full disclosure, I live here in the United States.
Very nice.
But I also recognize the United States as part of the world, and a lot of our work is relates to European policy and how we can harmonize the transition to agroecology, in all of these places, all over the world, really. But in the United States, some of the policies that are showing promise in this regard include one that is, we call it like medically tailored meals, where
Yeah,
um, people who have chronic health conditions can be prescribed produce or even prepared meals. Um, like you said, we also have institutional procurement, whether it's hospitals or schools, that can work with local farms, local food systems to purchase foods for their populations. Let's see. And then, our social safety net programming, there's always been some conversation. Currently, right now, there's like a incentive, disincentive proposal being put forward by some of the public health institutions here in the United States, around it's called SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, whether you can place an incentive on, like, so already at farmers markets, if a SNAP recipient goes to a farmers market, they get it's called double your bucks. They get double the amount of money to buy local foods. And so there's talk about translating that to the retail
very
environment.
interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to take up too much of the time. It's a really fascinating space, but
Yeah, here in
yeah.
Portugal, we're also seeing the involvement with schools as well from the municipalities, and how can we source the ingredients in a smaller radius and then provide to the schools as well, and of course change through processed food and all of those
Mhm.
sugars that they're eating, and change from a whole food diet as well. So yeah, Marco, do you want to say something before we finish? I don't know if he's there.
Yes, sorry, I had a problem because I'm at work and yeah, there were other people. No, like I can just pen a word like me being an agronomist, like I see that uh, farmers are not really aware of of the potential of growing like nutrient food, and like not aware of like the complexity of the topic. So yeah, I would really like to see, I don't know, something in this direction, like to enhance their knowledge about, yeah, what they can do. Yeah, just this, just simply
The farmers, you mean?
farming.
How can we educate farmers, no?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Because that's the crucial point. Because if we don't have this, if we don't have like the proper food, then what's the point of talking about all those things?
exactly.
So yeah,
So
maybe
let's
we,
do it.
yeah,
Okay.
we move on the other
Yeah.
room. Nice. See you.
Okay, I think it's my time to take it over from Cristina. I hope that you had a really nice time discussing the really important topics. And I will take you towards the future, which we believe is the regenerative healthcare. I hope that you can see well the presentation. Okay, so how do we shift from egocentrism, where we separate ecosystem from the human body, towards more an ecocentric approach, where the nutrition and healthcare and the food and all of the elements that are important for our survival are seen as a part of the whole puzzle that we need to figure out in next 1 century. One Health is a concept that we work a lot, and we really hope to use our voices to popularize it and to make more health professionals and more healthcare system and food system be working with it. So One Health concept highlights the importance that the human well-being is dependent on our ecosystem, our soil, our planets, and the animals. And really the red thread of all of those ecosystems are the microorganisms, as they are the crucial element in each single one of those environments. So probably most of you are familiar with the term microbiome. Microbiome is a microbial community occupying a specific habitat which have its specific physiochemical properties. And microbiome is a crucial has a crucial function across all of the ecosystems that we can look at. So in human body, our microbiome is responsible for digestion. It helps us to absorb our nutrients. It controls our immune system. And now more and more studies are looking into nutritional psychology, which links the development of mental diseases with poorly developed microbiome diversity. However, like soils and plants also have their microbiomes, which are responsible for various functioning. As in soil, the microbiome is important in building the soil structure, in bringing the optimal nutrients, in ensuring the correct organic matter. So we pull out the study here on the left. It's a really new study just from, I think, 1 month ago, which look into what type of microbes we have in the soil and how afterwards those microbes are influencing the plant and the animal and the human microbiome. And the same as with diet, our bodies thrive on diversity. The more diverse grains and beans and nuts and vegetables we can have in our diet, the more diverse our microbiome will be. And this diversity leads to our microbiome to become strong and resilient. And it's the same with the soil's microbiomes. So we really need to move away from obsessing about what to eat exactly and finding the perfect diet into being focused on how our food is grown. And in order to understand deeper the differences between the farming practices affecting the nutritional content, a nutrient variation concept was created, which measures levels of macronutrients and micronutrients and phytochemicals in our crops, depending on the soil, on the farming practices. So on the graph, you can see a bionutrient food association, a really wonderful organization in the US that is pioneering really this nutrient density and nutrient variation studies, collected samples from all kinds of different sources, from human growing it, from people growing it in their own gardens to supermarkets, and they tested what is the variation between those different fruits or crops. And here you can see that the farthest example was grapes, where depending on what was the source of the grapes would have 15 times more of elements as calcium, iron, potassium, and other key elements necessary for human nutrition. The same, another example would be like blueberries. You know, all of us know that blueberries are amazing and we have them in our porridge because they are low in glycemic index. And we also know that they are high in antioxidants, but we actually don't know what is the amount of antioxidants we are getting. And the span that Bionutrient Institute have researched was from 25 to 4,000 units per 100 grams, which is quite significant. So since we know that farming practices are affecting what is the nutritional content of our food, hence the nutritional density, meaning how much of the beneficial nutrients we have in the food that was produced per energy or per weight, we need to start shifting our incentives for farmers to start rewarding them for nutrition density. So as Cristina was covering before, right now we're focused on how much farmer can produce in a hectare, what is the weight of the end product, which really incentivizes farmer to just grow huge monocultures of one crop that are super easy to process, super easy to store. However, they lead most of the time to inflammation, as we have wheat, which then is being grinded, and we just have a white flour, which is nothing more than starches that then turn into glucose, which are empty calories. But if we would start being able to reward farmer for actually contributing to local food security, we would drastically shift what is being grown, what are the outcomes for human health, and what is the development of rural communities, which are right now they're dying. The rural communities are dying in Europe. So what are some of those amazing practices that support both ecosystem and human health? Well, first and foremost, we need to focus on prioritizing soil health. So how do we do that? We plant lots of cover crops. We include intensive crop rotation. However, all of those practices are very context specific. So it's quite difficult to say, okay, this is exactly what we need to do, as it will really depend of where we are and what kind of farming practices or what kind of crops are we able to produce. We need to reduce our dependency of external inputs as they are based on fossil fuels, as they are contributing to destruction of soil health, as they are contributing to disruption of human health, and they are just fueling petroleum-based economy, which we definitely get away very quickly. We need to start sequestering more carbon, which is the natural outcome of photosynthesis. We need to bring back the water cycles. We need to enhance the biodiversity, and something that is very important as well to mention, that we need to bring productivity and profitability to our farmers. I mean, we need to start rewarding farmers for doing the right thing, because they are out there and they are doing the hard work for all of us, trying to fix the environment. So we definitely have to start paying them the right price for the amazing hardship that they are going through every day. Another importance of having right soil management is because so bacteria and fungi produce mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is this huge networks underground, invisible for our eye, that secures that the plant can take up the minerals from the soil. So the minerals were locked in rocks or organic matter, and this fungi and bacteria are producing the right enzymes, which allow to take up those nutrients into the plant, leading then for us being able to have food that actually delivers us the nutrients that we need every day. And I know this is very intensive graphic, but it's just to kind of highlight that plant nutrition and human nutrition are really close to each other. We basically need the same minerals, which is, I know that maybe One Health concept is very like abstract, but this is like a real tangible example of how One Health is implemented, or like how One Health works across all of the ecosystem, including our body system. So what is happening within nutrient density? It's definitely an emerging field of research, which we are really happy for, because we are getting more and more evidence that regenerative organic agriculture or agroecological practices are actually contributing to higher nutrient density of crops. So a study released this year by David Montgomery, which is a leading scientist within this field, compared the nutrient density of regenerative and conventional farming. And they found out that farms which use regenerative practices had higher soil organic matter, better health scores in their soils. They had more vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. At the same time, beef and pork raised in regenerative farming farms had more omega-3, which is very important in the imbalance of omega-3 and omega-6 that we are having right now because of the domination and the total abuse of of vegetable oils. If you want to go deeper into it, we encourage you to read the book What's Your Food Ate by David Montgomery and Emma Pickle, which summarize all of the research that have been published so far. And just to say, like, we could definitely bring here many more studies, researching both vitamins and minerals. Also, another really interesting amino acids called ergothioneine, really difficult to pronounce, that is connected to many medical benefits, as it was linked to reducing diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, but apparently it occurs in our food only if there's minimum tillage, because this chemical compound is only present in our food if the mycorrhizal network is strong. And this is a wonderful model from Regenerative Agriculture and Human Health Nexus white paper released by Creighton Institute, which we encourage all of you to have a look at, which just gives us an overview of, what is the steps. Because right now we know 86% of people in Europe die from chronic diseases. I mean, those people, like, to start talking about microbiome is really far. So we need to, take step-by-step approach. So first step is that we need to replace from ultra-processed food towards whole food, plant-forward diet. The next step, once we accomplish that, we need to start prioritizing food free from chemicals, not only for better biodiversity, but also for human health. Like, we know that nitrogen-based fertilizers, which derive from petroleum, have compounds called endocrine disruptive chemicals, which lead to, especially among women, problems with endocrine disorders and lead to lower fertility rates. And I think that's just like such a powerful metaphor showing how if we extract something and we destroy the environment, it will end up as destroying our bodies as well. The next level is nutrient density, as we discussed, and the final level is really focused on the microbiome and how can we optimize microbiome from the soil to the plant, to the animal, to our body. So I would like to invite you to another breakout room discussion, and then we'll go to the final part. But yeah, I want to hear what initiative working with One Health on agroecology do you know in your community, or if you don't know any, then how can you bring them to your community? So if you can just divide, that would be great.
Okay, good.
The recording is following Elena.
Because Helena can't hear. You're muted.
Sorry, yeah, feel free to discuss.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, but indeed, which are the communities that, or the initiative that we already know that connects agriculture and nutrition? Well, maybe I am a little bit apart, but I would say our coalition. So I'm a little bit too influenced. So I leave you the word first.
I'm not entirely sure actually if I know any. I was just thinking now about an initiative which is called like Ernährungsrat, which I think they have in Germany and in Austria. And I think this one is also about generally food and agriculture. I don't know how much in detail it goes on nutrition though. But this was like now the first thing that was coming to my mind. But this is also like a project really relating more on like where is your food coming from, and it's an initiative I think there's in a couple of German cities and as well in Austria as well. But that's to be honest, I think the only one that.
But indeed, if I also think at what some local organization or some local initiative also here in Turin. Well, we have here, I have nearby Bra, which is the headquarter of Slow Food. So I can say Slow Food, but a part of it, which is still very active. No other initiative really dealing with both agriculture and nutrition, as well as we were talking before. There is absolutely no connection. Maybe there are very nice initiative about regenerative agriculture, very nice initiative talking about healthcare, health, human health, etc., but they never met. Beside I would say Slow Food, and I have also here the University of Gastronomic Science, in which Paola is working. So she's for sure doing a lot of work on this concept.
Yeah, I do not see here in this eastern side of Europe initiatives that would link both. It's only I'm taking part in a project which is called Be Eco, and it is addressed to about 2,500 teachers and 35,000 children, and I try to put together, because I'm responsible for 3 topics, and one of them is linked with eco food. It is like a huge concept to present myths and truths. So I tried, because I'm rather free to put what I want into my speeches. So I put also a huge part about soil health and those links. But I have never heard that during the conferences I attended until now, to really have these both sides. And I think it's really hard, because generally people who are very familiar with nutrition are not necessarily with agriculture, and the opposite. So it's tough to have an expert who would be like, they are not very often working in couples, and to have someone who will join both in one person is really hard to find. Also, that's the problem.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. Thank you, Elena. But indeed, and it is also difficult, since it is already evident that regenerative food grown in regenerative agriculture are more nutrient dense. But then the challenge is to scientifically prove that also the fact that we eat those food we are also able to absorb more nutrients, because when you talk about health, it's such a huge concept. And so it's very difficult to strictly link and prove scientifically, because now we always have to move and proceed if we have scientific evidences. But indeed, it is very difficult to connect health to just one input.
Okay, so let's get back to it. Well, I don't know, like, I wish we'd have time so we can discuss what happened in the breakout room. I'm sure there were so many amazing initiatives, but maybe if you have anything you want to share, just write it in the comments, and then we make sure that we can redistribute it across our networks and our communities. But the whole thing about this webinar is like, okay, we know this stuff, so what's now? Like, we need to act. We know what we have to do. We have no time. We have nothing to lose. So what are people doing about this? And there's a lot happening. And this is just, we'll just give you a few of examples, but there's so much out there happening. But I call those people like silent heroes, because they just do their thing in their community, in the farmland, and you most likely have very little chance to actually hear about how they are, contributing their tiny drop of water towards the ocean of the change that has to happen. So I just came back from US like 2 weeks ago, and I had the privilege to be on the first regenerative healthcare conference in US, run by Rezende Institute, which is one of those oldest institutes in the world, researching organic and now regenerative organic agriculture. They had research for over 40 years to prove that organic agriculture can very well feed the world and have very high yields. And it's study competitive with conventional agriculture, and they actually help to push the organic certification in the US thanks to it. So we had 60 health professionals, a lot of medical doctors on the farm, in the barn, learning about, exudate and soil health. And it was so wonderful. And there was more than 600 applicants. So it's also like, the interest is there, like 100%, like from what the participants said, like all of those medical doctors, that they were expressing their emotions, saying that I have never participated in something so meaningful. So also medical doctors are not only ready for the change that food is medicine, but they're also ready to go out of their hospital buildings, go out the field and see, okay, how can we reunite all of this? And it's happening. It's amazing. Another super cool example from US, focus on decolonization of medicine and health, deep medicine cycle. Yes. They focus on healing the medicine, healing by restoring the landscape, restoring people hope. They are medical doctors that directly collaborate with community organizers, especially focus on people of color, because in US there's such a huge inequalities of what is the accessibility to not only medical services, but also healthy food. So they're doing amazing work. I really encourage you to check them out. Food is medicine. There's so many examples of food as medicine being used and applied. That is just one of them. A medical doctor in US that bought a piece of land, decided to restore it, use regenerative organic practices, and now he's working with regenerative farmers and health coaches with patients for over 1 year to make sure that they are fully transitioning, and he helped them with accessibility to healthy products, but also with maintaining and creating the behavior change that is so needed. All of the skills, all of the motivation secured for a long time, that this becomes eating healthy, eating sustainable, become our second nature. Farm to hospital model, still from US. We have been on an organic farm, which was just across the hospital. Really took us like 5 minutes to walk from one place to another. And this regenerative organic food is being delivered to the hospital canteen. And you can just see like how it shifted it shifted dynamic. Like people are suddenly start talking about, you know, like cauliflower and kale in the hospital with excitement, and people, doctors taking it home also to cook it for their families. Like it was just like the organic revolution is really being brought into the building of the hospital. Medically tailored diets. I think this is what I'm working with, and I can definitely see that this will be like the future of prevention and intervention. Just to give you one example, still from US, Fresh Air Eggs in Oklahoma source local and regenerative grow food that they prove that it's nutrient dense, and then they deliver it to people either recovering from, you know, heart diseases or strokes, or suffering from type 2 diabetes. And all of this, you know, model is also supporting local regenerative farmers. I know that these graphs will be quite hard to read, but we have been on some of the regenerative conferences in Amsterdam, I think over a month ago, where there was actually a representative of EU talking about the new EU soil protection strategy. Some of their KPIs that they want to secure is maximum soil coverage, improve crop rotation, and reduce soil tillage. And they have 4 objectives, and number 4 is soil literacy communication among citizens, which is super cool because this is what we're doing right now. So that's really exciting. European Union also have their own body, EIT regeneration, where they run trainings about regenerative culture in Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Poland. Raiza actually just came back from one of them in Portugal. They also measure nutrient density, and there's new exciting papers that will come out very soon. And they are really like trying to accelerate and highlight and communicate the regenerative transition that is happening on our continent. And then bionutrient meter, this is more of a device. So you might remember the Bionutrient Food Association, which also measures the nutrient density. They are right now fundraising to launch this, this special device in which you'll be able to actually scan your food to see what is the nutrient density, and then I think this will really empower people to be able to know what they are buying and put their money behind people who really prioritize soil practices that also prioritize human health. And then maybe I would just quickly introduce this as well. Or I don't know, Cristina, would you like to jump in? Yeah, jump in.
Yes, indeed. So this is another very nice project carried out by Agroecology Europe with other partners, and is the mapping of agroecological realities that already exist in Europe. So the goal is still to empower already existing initiative, because together, yeah, we are stronger, and to create a network. So it started 2 years ago, and it was a very participatory process, because also a lot of the members of the youth network of Agroecology Europe have been involved, and this project is already going on, and they have mapped more than 11 countries. You can see, if you want to know more, you can go and check in the Agroecology Europe website. And this initiative has been listed and divided into the 3 pillars of agroecology. So pillars of practice, so all the farms dealing with agroecology, science, so the institute and university, etc., and also very important, all the social movement and activism networks. Thank you.
Perfect. Yes, amazing. Cristina is really deeply engaged with, which is so cool. Yeah, and then there is our coalition. As for with Eirini, Cristina, and Raiza, trying to do what we can. We collect science. We have a database which you can check out on our website, where we continuously feed in with new scientific articles about nutrient density and connection to regenerative culture. We also learn. We have to first and foremost educate ourselves. So we have amazing peer-to-peer learning running, because like we need to constantly update ourselves, as this is such a new study that, you know, everything is very fast paced. We try to spread and educate others. We try to communicate this kind of content on both Instagram and LinkedIn and on webinars like this. And we try to, you know, inspire people. And we also we try to grow the network. So we have a map where we try to point all of the nutrient density places which research nutrient density. So also, if you know any, you're very welcome to send it to us. And we're really trying to connect people, like maybe somebody wants to research nutrient density. So we'll send them, you know, a number to somebody that actually does the research. So we are trying, just as mycelium, we're trying to, you know, spread this regenerative revolution. And I just, before I finish off with open discussion, I just want to say that even though there's, of course, so much to still to be done and to still be researching and you know, waiting for all of the cool like devices that we can measure the nutrient density, let's remember that we can do a lot. Let's remember that we can go to, like, of course, we can try to research stuff, but we also can simply go to a local farmer, ask them like, hey, what practices do you use on the farm? Like, we don't have to focus on organic certification, which is often so connected to like big money administration behind it. Let's support people who do the right thing. Let's consume minimally processed food. Let's prioritize vegetables and fruit and the whole grains and beans and seeds and nuts. And then if you eat meat, let's try to make sure that we eat meat from a regenerative farms where we know that the animals were holistically raised. So, like, let's not wait. Let's make sure that we put our money towards people that are out there and that are actively doing the hard work for us. Yeah. So, if you would like to join the movement, please check us on our website or our Instagram, or email us on our email or on LinkedIn. We are always very happy to talk with anybody, because as I said, we just want to grow as a mycelium. So if you have a project, we'll be super happy to talk with you. How can we contribute? It's a very co-creative spirit. We just do it because we feel that the need to do something, but that's it. So if you have any questions, reflections, we still have a decent 7 minutes. So maybe I will leave this up for open discussion, and I'll stop sharing. Correct.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. I hope this presentation was interesting and we have given you new inputs. So yeah, we have already other 7 minutes that we can spend sharing maybe what have been discussed during the breakout room, or if you have any question. I see that there was some quite some activities in the chat, but I hadn't the occasion to go through all of it. So if you have any questions or comments, you are more than welcome to share them with us.
Do you want us to just speak or chat or type?
You're welcome to speak, Raiza.
Thank you. I think a common thread is just who's doing what where. I really liked the question in the second group, but we enjoyed ourselves so much, we never really got to make a list of who's doing what where. I was on a small group with a doctor, and I'm a dietitian, but I have an organic farm. So I already cross health, agriculture, and environment. But we've got to be able to put all of this together to show how big we are. And where are we going to do that in one place? Especially when it's health and agriculture. There are agroecology lists, there are nutrition lists, but there's this overlap that we need to map. So that's what I would like to see, is one place that's really doing that overlap. Thanks.
Does anybody has any ideas or like any knowledge of collecting all of these initiatives? Because I know that also in the audience, Marta, you also have one initiative in Holland. I'm pretty sure, like, yeah, how can we make a unified voice to show the size of us? Because there's many of us. Somebody's writing. Definitely what we can do after like this webinar is try to save the comments and see what kind of organizations you are working, and then maybe we can send you just a list of the organizations that participants are part of. Yeah, and then I saw that some people were asking who is from UK, so maybe at least people from the same country can find each other. I think there's always so much of context specificity to health and culture and agriculture is the culture. That's my new favorite phrase. But yeah, definitely.
Say your favorite phrase again. What is it?
It's good, Anna. Listen, it's agriculture is the culture. You wrote it down. I saw it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, obviously you got the sort of standard sort of methods of agriculture out there, and obviously ecology and that the soil is very important. But have you, obviously the new evolving technologies coming out with like cellular agriculture and other basically technology like that, how can you integrate this into the sort of like for diets and for health of people? Have you thought about that as well? Because obviously we need to keep up with the technology in a sense.
And which technology did you mention? Sorry.
Like cellular agriculture, like lab. So obviously you say like obviously if you're going to eat meat, you want to have from well kept animals on nice farms. But obviously if we're going for like bioreactor grown meat, for example, but you want the best quality in terms of nutritional value, is have you thought about how to incorporate that into sort of like the health and well-being of a person?
Maybe I would just jump into discussion, but I think everybody will have their very personal opinion. But what our coalition at least is really focused is how can we cultivate food in a way that it restores the ecosystem. So we are really on like One Health, where we we prioritize restoring the soil microbiome and waters, and I think it lists in my head like lab grown food, like lab grown meat doesn't really do it. Like this meat doesn't poop. It doesn't give us what we need. It doesn't give us compost. For me, at least, I'm also really afraid of like patents. So yeah, at least, but maybe Raiza or Cristina, anybody would like to jump?
I think I can just add that our approach is really based on eating whole foods, and cellular meat, it can be something attractive if you're willing to change your behavior, or if you're used to eating in a certain type of way and you want to change it. But it's still a processed type of food, and what we want is to work with farmers and to work with nature, and above all, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of the whole process in the sense like in terms of say, you need to generate certain like growth factors, say for this industry, but we're using like plant-based systems to do this, like potatoes, lettuce, and things like this. So this is in context of circular economy, in terms of like, using that biomass then to basically go back maybe for composting or for whatever as well. So it's a bigger process. It's not the end point. It's all sort of like the supply chain along there in terms of the process, which is a lot of it is plant-based. So I'm just thinking in that context.
But also there's not just plant-based, but also I think with holistic management and holistic grazing, I think there's a bit to bringing the meat being sexy again, and just recognizing the whole of animals within the ecosystem for regeneration. So it all goes together.
Exactly. I'm sorry, but I have to interrupt the discussion, even though I really thank you all for being so active. And I've also been looking at the chat, and there are people that try to connect among each other. I remind you that this webinar has been recorded and then it will be published. So thank you again for having been with us. And I remind you that the month of agroecology will last until the 19th of November. So if you want to keep updated and keep going on looking for what we will publish and our activity, you can follow us on our social media, or you can look at our website, both for the Agroecology Europe Association and for our coalition. Again, thank you all, and we were so proud to have you, all of you, together with us. And let's see you at the next appointment. Thank you a lot.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
So.